This Sunday on Capital Connection, Illinois starts to reopen slowly but surely.
Opening up state parks, which are downstate, not in Cook County.
And Governor Pritzker responds to a smattering of protesters who gathered around government buildings in Springfield and Chicago, calling for him to reopen even faster. Why the governor says we're just not there yet, and the benchmark he's looking toward to reopen regions of the state.
It's 14 days on a downslide.
Plus, the growing cost of preparing for the worst. It's all coming up on Capital Connection.
From the Illinois State Capitol Rotunda, Capitol Bureau Chief Mark Maxwell is asking the tough questions. This is Capital Connection.
Welcome to Capital Connection. I'm Mark Maxwell, reporting from the Illinois State House on this Sunday, May 3rd. Governor Pritzker's third consecutive executive order is now in full effect, though it looks and feels different than the first two. By now, you've heard many of the changes, including a requirement for people to wear a face mask or a face covering when they go out in public, and also a phased, gradual, slow reopening of some parts of the state economy. That includes state parks, golfing, and fishing in strict conditions and following state guidelines. But the governor did come under increasing political pressure this week and also under judicial scrutiny as he continues under his emergency power. And as the governor is fast approaching 60 consecutive daily coronavirus press briefings, it's becoming increasingly more clear that he's leaving enforcement of his policies up to local law enforcement and focusing his energy on the state's efforts to expand widespread testing and contact tracing, two keys to reopening the entire state.
Testing is one of the keys to reopening the state.
Testing is vital to our efforts to reduce social restrictions, get our economy going, and to protect our residents.
While some anxious protesters demand to reopen Illinois now, the governor and public health experts explain the painstaking process for how we can get there. Testing enough people to identify who is sick and then retracing their steps to see who else they contacted.
Contact tracing is one of the most critical tools that we have to reduce our spread rate, speed up our diagnoses, and seek to halt outbreaks before they happen.
This is how we break transmission, and it's how we make sure that we don't have a large outbreak ongoing. Given the magnitude of the COVID-19 cases and plans to eventually relax mitigation efforts, such as stay-at-home orders and social distancing, communities need many trained workers.
Local health departments are already undergoing efforts to trace contacts now, but soon the state could need nearly 4,000 people on the job.
And then scaling up an army of contact tracers by the hundreds and then by the thousands.
If you test positive, health officials will want to know where you've been and who you've seen.
Interviewing the COVID positive person, asking them to gather their contacts and retrace their steps over the past 14 days.
And if you came into contact with a known positive case, the order to stay home won't be a suggestion. It will be a legally enforceable quarantine order.
Those deemed to be close contacts were asked to self-quarantine, and cases were isolated. Contacts are quarantined for 14 days from the date of last exposure.
And if you're one of thousands who prefer to buck the stay-at-home order and mingle in large crowds, public health experts warn the larger that crowd, the larger the likelihood you could either catch the virus or come into contact with someone who has it, increasing your risk of eventually getting a knock on the door from your county public health department.
We haven't been able to test everybody, but we know that there are many, many people out there that are pre-symptomatic, asymptomatic, and yet have coronavirus. So if you put one of those people in a room full of parishioners, you run the risk that you're going to get a kind of exponential run of this disease, of this infection rather, through a crowd of people that you love and care for.
When we come back, a conversation with a lawyer representing House Republican Darren Bailey and John Cabello, both Republicans challenging Governor Pritzker's executive authority in court. We're back in a moment.
Hi, it's Jan from Toyota. Many of you still need to be on the road right now. Toyota is here to help.
We're offering an incredible 0% on our most popular Toyotas. That's 0% on Camry, 0% on RAV4, or 0% on Tacoma. Plus, Toyota will defer your payments for up to 90 days. And if you need service for your current vehicle, our service centers remain open.
We're here for you. Contact your local Toyota dealer to see how they can help. Toyota.
When you want to work in your garden or just be outside, check in with WCIA3's weather team for their 7-day forecast. Sponsored by Edelman. When you need to know what the weather will be today, tomorrow, or this week, you can count on Chief Meteorologist Kevin Whitey, Adam Claybon, Jack Griffin, and Amelia Henderson to give you the most accurate forecast. They'll help you plan your week with a 7-day forecast from WCIA3, your local weather leader. Sponsored by Edelman Electric Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling.
It's time to gear up for spring with help from your neighbors at Blaine's Farm and Fleet. We have great deals on everything you need to get your yard looking its best, like large bags of estate lawn fertilizer, just $19.99. Get $100 off this Cub Cadet Hydro Lawn Tractor. Power up yard equipment with this Yellow Jacket extension cord, $34.99. Save $50 on this DeWalt air compressor. Plus, buy online and pick up your items in our convenient drive-thru.
Find value at Blaine's Farm and Fleet.
Usling & Abbott, Illinois' largest bankruptcy-only law firm. Voted 2019's leading lawyer in bankruptcy and foreclosure defense. Just named a top 3 bankruptcy attorney. Call now for a free consultation. Usling & Abbott, your small business attorneys, offering business debt solutions, business restructuring, business lease terminations, business loan settlements, business reorganizations, and business bankruptcy. Call Usling & Abbott attorneys, offering solutions to small business problems.
The American Red Cross urgently needs blood and platelet donations and asks all healthy donors to schedule an appointment to give now. With the coronavirus outbreak, it is important to maintain a sufficient blood supply. Your blood donation is critical and can help save lives. Please, schedule an appointment today. Download the Blood Donor app, visit redcrossblood.org, or call 1-800-RED-CROSS today. You can make a difference.
You're watching Capital Connection from the Illinois State Capitol.
The stay-at-home order, designed in close consultation with scientists and public health experts, remains in place. As it stands, the judge's ruling is limited, applying only to one person.
Governor Pritzker's executive powers faced their first test in a courtroom this week. Our cameras were not allowed inside the first courtroom in Clay County, but when House Republican Darren Bailey emerged, he declared a victory in his fight to limit the governor's executive power.
Our governor, J.B. Pritzker, has trashed the Constitution of not only the United States of America, but of our great state. Yeah. So he's giving me, which is what I asked, immediate sanctuary, and I have that.
The judge granted Bailey a temporary restraining order, effectively releasing him, and him only, from the governor's order to stay at home.
This ruling only applies to one person because it was only ever about one person. This was a cheap political stunt designed so that the representative can see his name in headlines, and unfortunately he has briefly been successful in that most callous of feats.
Political sparring aside, the court explored the limits of the governor's emergency powers. Judge Michael McCaney asking a lawyer for the Attorney General's office, "You're saying the governor can declare these as long as he wants?" The attorney, Thomas Verticchio, responding, "As long as he declared a disaster." Later, the judge said, "Every second this executive order is in existence, it is in violation of the Constitution and shreds the Bill of Rights," adding, "This executive order is absolutely destroying people's property, which is protected in the Constitution's Fifth Amendment." McCaney later said, "The issue before me now is whether the governor can ignore the Illinois and U.S. constitutions for more than 30 days. This court rules that the answer to the question is a resounding no." At the other end of the state, House Republican John Cabello sued in a class action using the same lawyer to challenge the governor's legal power to enforce his order. If successful, Cabello's case would allow everyone in Illinois to ignore the governor's order unless state lawmakers return to Springfield to rewrite the law and expand the governor's power. It remains unclear when Cabello's case might be heard, but the night before the governor's new executive order was scheduled to take effect, Representative Darren Bailey asked the court in his case to withdraw the restraining order that he had celebrated just 5 days before. The attorney representing both Representatives John Cabello in his case and also Darren Bailey in his lawsuit joins us now. Tom DeVore from his offices in Bond County. It's good to have you with us. Unfortunately, cameras were not allowed inside the courtroom on Monday, almost a week ago now, in Clay County, where you argued against the Illinois Attorney General's office before a judge there, and you said the governor has emergency powers. You didn't deny that, but you said that the governor's emergency powers expire after 30 days. The government lawyer said, well, he can declare a new disaster every 30 days thereafter until the disaster is gone. You disputed that fact. But in that specific legal debate, we're not talking about the medicine or the science or any of this right now. That's a very separate discussion. But the state is basically saying the governor has emergency powers. That's the Illinois Emergency Management Act, and we've discussed that law at length. But the governor is also saying that the enforcement is carried out through a different portion of the law, the Illinois Department of Public Health Act, or the Illinois Public Health powers, basically, which are these quarantine powers, which you're referencing. So
the notice that you have specifically expresses from the governor and Mrs. Ige that if you refuse to abide by his executive order, that the government can seek an order forcing you, and you have a right to be heard in a court under the specific provisions that I've been arguing in every courtroom so far, give people rights to be heard before they quarantine. Go ahead.
I understand what you're saying, but I guess the question is, why should the state not be allowed to enforce the governor's executive power with another legal part of state law that's on the books? The state does have the power to do all these things. Why are you saying that they can't link those two together?
I'm saying it doesn't matter, sir. That particular argument, I don't care about it. Let's hypothetically, in arguendo, assume that you can link the powers, okay? And we say that the governor's executive order is able to be enforced by the Department of Public Health Act, the statute that has the specific provisions, and the administrative laws. Let's assume that to be the case, whether we argue about it or not. I'm willing for this conversation with you to accept that. The document that you have reviewed, the governor and the Dr. Ezike specifically say that those are the powers by which they will use to enforce the executive order. And I'm willing to say on behalf of my clients, okay, let's do that. The standards within that law specifically say, and you've read them, I'm sure, under 2305, that the burden of proof is by clear and convincing evidence specific to that citizen or specific to that business that they are, and I'm going to generalize here, a public health risk because of certain substantive factors. It's a burden of proof in the court of law. And if the local state's attorneys, because they're the ones that are charged with enforcing these laws by a request from the local Department of Health. So I now have, I've sent, and I'll send them to you, and they'll be public soon. I, on behalf of 2 clients, have sent notices to the local Department of Public Health, to the local law enforcement, and to the state's attorney's office of our county, putting them on. My client now has this document. They recognize and that the governor and Dr. Ezike have acknowledged if they want to dispute this order, that can be done. They can dispute it, and if the Department of Public Health disagrees, they can take them to court, and they're ready to go to court and let the state put on the burden that they are a public health risk. As to an individual, the standard is in the statute, and the state has to prove that this person has been contracted the virus, has been around somebody with the virus, and they also have to prove there's no less reasonable restriction to put in place. And the law also says that you can only quarantine them for the length of time of incubation period.
So I think I understand your argument generally. You're basically arguing you can legally quarantine the sick, you cannot legally quarantine the healthy. The law does also go in and say, that there are some limitations on how you can do that and how you can give notice. But let me ask you this. Why would a court not accept that Governor Pritzker and the state of Illinois did notify all 12.7 million people when they held daily press conferences for 50 days straight, when they went and put out press releases, when they met the media, when they streamed it on Facebook and on Twitter, and when they recruited and shared all this information with media? It's not as though this were some secret. They have notified everyone, maybe not in a piece of paper on their door or in their mailbox, but the notice has been given. Why is that notice not valid?
If you're going to take them into a court of law, you have to give them actual notice. Now, there are some times in a case against a defendant that you can give notice by publication, but that has to be approved by the court. If you don't get notice to publicize that by the court, you have to give them actual notice. That due process requirement of procedure goes back centuries. So, but again, I want to be clear. As to the issue that I've asked my clients they wanted me to bring up, we're not raising the issue of whether these folks got notice or not. We're saying, okay, we got the notice now, and the notice says that and they're saying I choose to invoke the last paragraph, and you've read the last paragraph, and it says I refuse to abide by the executive order, and I respect and appreciate local law enforcement's ability to go get a court order to force me to quarantine. I'm willing to have my day in court, and if the local authorities want to do that with this business and this 70-year-old veteran, I will be there with them to represent their interest against the local government.
You're basically saying the state has, and the law does say, the state has a burden of proof to prove that this person is either sick or their place of business could be a public health risk. So the state is out here saying the coronavirus is real. It's putting everyone out in public that mingles with other people at risk now. And you're saying, prove it.
No, and what I'm saying, and again, what gets said I believe in the judicial system, and what gets said on a camera for politics is not what happens in the courtroom, sir. I have a case from the Illinois Supreme Court, and it'll be shown, that says unequivocally mere suspicion alone is not enough to restrict someone's freedoms. And in my legal opinion, on behalf of my clients, the broadcast across millions of people without any specific nexus to that person is mere suspicion.
And we look forward to covering that to see where this legal argument goes. Before I let you go, I want to ask you about the consequences of this because, of course, yes, the matters of the law are important. It does matter, the limitation and scope of executive power in times of emergency. That's important to our system of government. But there's also a very real health crisis right now, a very real threat of people becoming infected, becoming sick, some dying. We've seen this coronavirus outbreak really shake the global economies. Do you personally feel any responsibility for this public messaging that is inviting people? You're basically saying, hey, folks, you have freedom, the freedom to go get sick. You're inviting people to go out and mingle.
I'm inviting people to say you have rights that can be protected. I'm not inviting anybody. No, let's be unequivocal here.
Do you have any concerns about the medical consequences of what you're playing with here?
Sir, I'm not a medical doctor. I am a Juris Doctorate. I have the ability to protect people's rights in a court of law. If the medical conditions are going to compete with that, the proper forum for that to happen is in a courtroom. That's all I'm saying. And let's be clear, sir. I want to be 100% clear with you. The letters that I have written on behalf of my clients, and you're going to get a copy, say that they will respect what the governor's orders of executive order have done. We're not going to violate them, but we're asking you within 48 hours, if you feel that I really am a threat, please, state's attorney, bring me into the courtroom. That's not dangerous. That's safe. That's respecting the governor's office. That's respecting the health issues. That's respecting the rule of law and people's freedoms, which are on the same playing ground as these health issues. People's rights, their fundamental liberties at risk.
But at the same time, you're representing a lawsuit, a legal challenge that, if successful, would release the entire state from the governor's stay-at-home order in this class action lawsuit for Representative Cabello.
That's correct. That class action lawsuit says that it's not enforceable as a matter of law. And if you notice, sir, have you noticed that there's been no temporary restraining order filed or requested by my client in that case? You've seen that, correct? There's reason for that. My client has a desire not to cause some kind of mass change. He wants to work with the legislative branch and the executive branch to find solutions. I hope he's successful in what he's doing right now. I pray that he's successful. And we have not taken that issue.
A powerful combination, yeah, we've got a powerful combination here of politics, of the law, of medical repercussions and science. Much of that changing on the ground as facts fly fast these days. I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there, but Tom DeVore, the lawyer, joining us from his offices there. Tom, thanks for logging on and updating us with some of these cases here.
Anytime, sir. Thank you for calling and asking me to participate.
All right, take care. We're back in just a moment.
experiences working with Beltone and Jennifer now. It's been about 12, 13 years. I chose Beltone because my father-in-law years ago worked with Beltone for years. Actually, he worked with Jennifer's dad at Beltone, and I chose Beltone because of his past experiences. I would recommend Beltone hearing aids to any of my family or friends.
Beltone, helping the world hear better.
Hi, I'm Keenan Swanson from The Roofing Dog. You've watched my brother and I grow up on TV through the years, and now I'm happy to say I'm a part of our customer service team. I can come out and meet with you, tell you more about myself and our business, and go over the details of your job. I truly look forward to working directly with you on your roofing project from start to finish. Please consider The Roofing Dog for all your roofing needs. From our family to yours, thank you for choosing The Roofing Dog.
Take spring by the horns. Unleash Toro power during Toro Days, April 29th through May 13th. Get up to $200 off select MyRide zero-turn mowers. Get $100 off Time Master 30-inch wide lawn mowers. And get up to $60 off 60-volt battery mowers. Great financing offers, too. Grab spring by the horns and get the best deals of the season. Now, during Toro Days, April 29th through May 13th. Toro, count on it.
See Sherman Small Engine in Mansfield or Awesome Machines in Savoy.
Ready to sell your home in 2020? With a guaranteed offer from Ryan Dallas Real Estate, skip the process of listing your home and go straight to sold. Closing in as little as 3 weeks. Stay hassle-free with Ryan Dallas Real Estate's guaranteed offer. It's selling made simple.
Oh, he's wiping a tear away. John is literally crying.
Rachel's home is alive.
I think that's funny.
With the sound of Julie Andrews.
You two are just adorable.
Then,
well, the good news is none of the producers are here to tell us what to do.
a Cinco de Mayo supper that's hot, hot, hot.
Oh, delicious.
And John's band is burning down the house. Next, Rachel.
Monday at 3 on WCIA 3. In a hurry but need to know the forecast? Watch Weather on the Threes with meteorologist Adam Claiborne for the most accurate forecast every 10 minutes. Weather on the Threes, weekdays on The Morning Show on WCIA 3. You're watching Capital Connection from the Illinois State Capitol.
We've told you in recent days about the state's ongoing effort to build out alternate hospitals, these makeshift hospitals, sometimes in tents, sometimes in large convention centers or old hospitals themselves. All of it an effort to create capacity in the event that a surge of coronavirus patients would come flooding into a hospital and they would need the overflow space. But to date, most of those makeshift hospitals remain empty with no patients. As WGN's Ben Bradley reports, all of that preparing for the worst comes at a steep cost.
They will be building out to 3,000 beds before the end of the month. This, folks, this is Illinois.
In the nearly 1 month since those words were spoken, the makeshift hospital at McCormick Place has seen just 29 COVID patients. Most, if not all, were in relatively good shape as they recovered and prepared to go home. In early April, officials acknowledged the facility may not be needed.
We all fervently hope that we will never need to take care of a patient here.
Of the 254 medical workers the state contracted to hire for McCormick Place, 170 have already been reassigned. But the state health department says there are still 84 assigned to the convention center, which now has just 9 patients. That's 9 medical workers for every 1 patient.
We have a shortage of healthcare workers across the state, so those that aren't working at McCormick that we can redeploy, we are redeploying.
What's it cost? WGN Investigates reviewed state payments and found at least $7.4 million has been spent on medical staffing specifically for McCormick Place. Records reveal the state also bought 800 iPhones for use at McCormick Place at a cost of more than $460,000. While the Army Corps of Engineers played a role in building out some of the so-called alternate care facilities, the bills have yet to come in from private contractors. The state renovated shuttered hospitals in Elgin, Melrose Park, and Blue Island, fearing an influx of COVID patients would overwhelm hospitals. None of the suburban facilities have treated a single person. Susan Swart is with the American Nurses Association of Illinois.
And maybe we wouldn't have had to have spent it if, in fact, we had invested in public health infrastructure over the years. It is something that we're going to have to, as a state, really look at and assess as we move out of this pandemic, because I think that we have found ourselves having to invest very quickly, which always costs more money, to put things in place that if we had been prepared, we wouldn't have needed to expend that extra money.
With Illinoisans slowing the spread by staying home, Governor Pritzker is now saying the makeshift hospitals may not be needed.
And it looks like we're going to have the ability to stand down much more of that facility. But again, I don't want to speak too soon, because all of these identified alternate care facilities need to be in a state of some kind of readiness in the event that there's a surge.
At the beginning of this outbreak, the governor foreshadowed that if the state did everything right, people would look back on the construction of these makeshift hospitals and say it was an overreaction. While they've barely been used, Pritzker said he's not ready to say the worst is over and that those overflow hospitals can be shut down. Ben Bradley, WGN Investigates.
And on Friday, Governor Pritzker and Chicago's Mayor Lori Lightfoot issued a joint statement announcing that massive makeshift hospital at McCormick Center, they're starting to tear it down. They just don't have enough need, not enough patience. We're back in a moment.
Join the WCIA3 sports team. Brett Behrens, Craig Choate, and Marley Weirda from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign Sports Desk for the best in local sports coverage in Central Illinois on WCIA3.
With Mother's Day just around the corner, now's your chance to show Mom how much she means to you with a gift she'll love from Blaine's Farm and Fleet. Like this closeout women's Carhartt Force shirt, just $24.99. Get $100 off this KitchenAid stand mixer. This insulated lunch tote set is just $12.99 while supplies last. Assorted Farm and Fleet chocolates are just $3.49 each. Plus, buy online and pick up your items in our convenient drive-thru.
Right now, it's an unprecedented time, filled with uncertainty. But when it comes to your financial future, you can count on BOS. Our local banking experts have always helped customers through life's financial events, even the unexpected ones, so you can focus on what's important to you and move forward with confidence. BOS, we're always just a tap away. Get started now at bankwithbos.com.
Usling & Abbott, Illinois' largest bankruptcy-only law firm. Voted 2019's leading lawyer in bankruptcy and foreclosure defense. Just named a top 3 bankruptcy attorney. Call now for a free consultation. Usling & Abbott, your small business attorneys, offering business debt solutions, business restructuring, business lease terminations, business loan settlements, business reorganizations, and business bankruptcy. Call Usling & Abbott attorneys, offering solutions to small business problems.
When you need to know what the weather will be in the coming week, tune in to WCIA3's 7-day forecast. You can count on our team of meteorologists, Kevin Lively, Adam Claybon, Jack Gervin, and Amelia Henderson for the most accurate 7-day forecast. Sponsored by Edelman.
That does it for us this week. Thank you for tuning in. Of course, you can always watch our full extended interviews up on our website. We hope to see you at the same time next Sunday. For Capital Connection, I'm Mark Maxwell.